class. We're reading Fahrenheit 451, and these videos are going to be put into 10-page segments. So if you want to read along with me in your book, or you just want to listen to the story instead, we are going to be doing this in 10-page increments. Starting with the first section, 1, the hearth of the salamander. It was a pleasure to burn. It was a special pleasure to see things eaten, to see things blackened and changed. With the brass nozzle in his fist, with this great python spitting its venomous kerosene upon the world, the blood pounded in his head, and his hands were the hands of some amazing conductor playing all the symphonies of blazing and burning to bring down the tatters and charcoal ruins of history. With a symbolic helmet numbered 451 on his stolid head, and his eyes all orange flame with the thought of what came next, he flicked the igniter, and the house jumped up in a gorging fire that burned the evening sky red and yellow and black. He strode in a swarm of fireflies. He wanted, above all, like the old joke, to shove a marshmallow on a stick in the furnace, while the flapping pigeon wing books died on the porch and lawn of the house, while the books went up in sparkling whirls and blew away on a wind turned dark with burning. Montag grinned, and the fierce grin of all men singed and driven back by flame. He knew that when he returned to the firehouse, he might wink at himself, a minstrel man, burnt corked in the mirror. Later, going to sleep, he would feel the fiery smile still gripped by his face muscles in the dark. It never went away, that smile. It never, ever went away, as long as he remembered. He hung up his black beetle-colored helmet and shined it. He flung his flame-proof jacket neatly. He showered luxuriously, and then, whistling hands in pockets, walked across the upper floor of the fire station and fell down the hole. At the last moment, when disaster seemed positive, he pulled his hands from his pockets and broke his fall by grasping the golden pole. He slid to a squeaking halt, the heels 1 inch from the concrete floor downstairs. He walked out of the fire station and along the midnight street toward the subway, where the silent air-propelled train slid soundlessly down its lubricated flue in the earth and let him out with a great puff of warm air into the cream-tiled escalator rising to the suburb. Whistling, he let the escalator waft him into the still night air. He walked toward the corner, thinking little at all about nothing in particular. Before he reached the corner, however, he slowed as if wind had sprung up from nowhere, as if someone had called his name. The last few nights, he had had the most uncertain feeling about the sidewalk just round the corner here, moving in the starlight towards his house. He had felt that a moment prior to his making the turn, someone had been there. The air seemed charged with a special calm, as if someone had waited there quietly, and only a moment before he came, simply turned to a shadow and let him through. Perhaps his nose detected a faint perfume. Perhaps the skin on the back of his hands on his face felt the temperature rise at this one spot where a person standing might raise the immediate atmosphere 10 degrees for an instant. There was no understanding it. Each time he made the turn, he saw only the white, unused, buckling sidewalk, with perhaps, on one night, something vanishingly swiftly across the lawn before he could focus his eyes or speak. But now tonight, he slowed almost to a stop. His inner mind, reaching out to turn the corner for him, had heard the faintest whisper. Breathing? Or was the atmosphere compressed merely by someone standing very quietly there, waiting? He turned the corner. The autumn leaves blew over the moonlit pavement in such a way as to make the girl who was moving there seem fixed to a sliding walk, letting the motion of the wind and leaves carry her forward. Her head was half bent to watch her shoes stir the circling leaves. Her face was slender and milk white. and in it was a kind of gentle hunger that touched over everything tireless curiosity. It was a look, almost of pale surprise. The dark eyes were so fixed to the world that no move escaped them. Her dress was white and it whispered. He almost thought he heard the motion of her hands as she walked, and the infinitely small sound now, the white stir of her face turning when she discovered she was a moment away from a man who stood in the middle of the pavement waiting. The trees overhead made a great sound of letting down their dry rain, and the girl stopped and looked as if she might pull back in surprise, but instead stood regarding Montague with eyes so dark and shining and alive that he felt he had said something quite wonderful. But he knew his mouth had only moved to say hello. And then, when she seemed hypnotized by the salamander on his arm and the phoenix sticks on his chest, he spoke again. "Of course," he said. "You're our new neighbor, aren't you? And you must be," she raised her eyes from his professional symbols, "the fireman." Her voice trailed off. "How oddly you say that." I'd have known it with my eyes shut," she said slowly. "What? Smell kerosene?" "My wife always complains," he laughed. "You never wash it off completely." "No, you don't," she said in awe. He felt she was walking in a circle about him, turning him end for end, shaking him quietly and emptying his pockets, without once moving herself. "Kerosene," he said, because the silence had lengthened. "It's nothing but perfume to me." "Does it seem like that? Really?" "Of course. Why not?" She gave herself time to think of it. "Oh, no." She turned to face the sidewalk going towards their homes. "Do you mind if I walk back with you?" "I'm Clarice McClellan." "Clarice. Guy Montaigne. Come on. What are you doing out so late wandering around? How old are you?" They walked in the warm, cool-blowing night on the silver pavement. There was the faintest breath of fresh apricots and strawberries in the air. He looked around and realized this was quite impossible so late in the year. There was only the girl walking with him now, her face bright as snow in the moonlight, and he knew she was working his questions around, seeking the best answers she could possibly give. "Well," she said, "I'm 17 and I'm crazy. My uncle says the two always go together. And when people ask your age," he said, "always say 17 and insane." Isn't this a nice time of night to walk? I like the smell of things and looks at things and sometimes stay up all night walking and watch the sunrise. Yeah. Okay.